Well, I have the privilege of welcoming once again Andy Godfrey from Sorted Magazine and Outreach UK, bringing us more movie reviews today. Hello, Andy.
Hello, Nathan. How are you?
I'm very well. I hope you are too.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Been to the cinema a couple of times. We've actually got some new films to review,
Yeah, very exciting.
which after the last couple of weeks makes a change, doesn't it?
It does.
So we'll start with what is the box office number one, if we may.
Yeah, sure.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Now, this is the sequel to the 1988 film. I mean, it's taken them all that time to make a sequel. So the original, we were in a haunted house, basically. We had a couple of ghosts. Some obnoxious people had moved into their house. They want to drive them out. They hire a guy called Beetlejuice, who is a ghost. He's what's called in the film a bioexorcist. In other words, he gets rid of human beings on behalf of other ghosts from their house. If that makes sense, okay? So that was the first film. There was a little girl in the film, played by Winona Ryder, who could see the ghosts. She had this special gift; she could see the ghosts. So now, all these years later, she's grown up and she's hosting her own supernatural TV show, which is about ghosts. Okay, do ghosts exist? She claims that she can contact dead people on behalf of the living, and she's got a studio audience. We see her running her own television show. However, her father dies, and that necessitates a return with her mother back to where they used to live, back to where the original ghost house was, a place called River Winter. And well, there now, look, the plot is unbelievably complicated. The plot is all over the place, but basically, well, there she contacts Beetlejuice again, and he wants to marry her because he's in love with her. However, his ex-wife, who is a ghost, has turned up and she wants him back. So it's a kind of romantic, complicated ghost story, basically. And the first film had lots of really funny elements. I mean, it had elements of stop motion animation. So we had giant sandworms. They're back. The first film had a reception room, a waiting room where you go into an office when you die to get help. Okay, and there's all sorts of dead people in all sorts of states of decay in this waiting room waiting for help. That's back. All the elements that were in the first film are back. My problem with this is, and it's number one in the box office, my problem with this film is it's all over the place. They've taken all the elements from the first film that we loved, that I loved, and they've said, we need to include that scene, we need to include that, we need to include that character, we need to include that bit of music, we need to put this in, we need to have that. And they've taken all the, and it's like having all the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, but they won't fit together.
Too much
The
going
film
on.
is incredibly disjointed.
Uh,
It's all over. I mean, in a way, it's entertaining because everything I wanted from the first film is back, but the story doesn't work. It's all over the place. An ex-wife turning up for Beetlejuice, a romantic love story with this girl who he's still got the hots for after 40 odd years, you know, and she's all grown up now and getting married herself. It just doesn't work. It just didn't gel. And I know lots of people who've loved it and who've said it's very entertaining and that I'm wrong. But I also know lots of people who agree with me, who said, look, this is a film that is all over the place. It's got this every element you want. But now, what I find fascinating, a couple of years ago, there was a new Ghostbusters film, which was called Ghostbusters Afterlife. They took all the elements from the original Ghostbuster film, put them in the new film, but they made it work because the story made sense.
hmm.
A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the new Alien film, Alien Romulus. They took all the elements from the original Alien film, put them in the new film, and made it work because the story made sense. This film, this new film, has taken elements from a film that was made 40 years ago, thrown them all in, but not come up with a cohesive story. So I was really, really, really disappointed. I mean, I sat through it. I enjoyed it. There's, you know, the song MacArthur Park. I don't know if you play this on Pure 247. Someone left the cake out in the rain. I don't think that I can take it because it took so long to bake it. Big hit for Donna Summer. This is the central song. And at one point, all of the characters are singing this song that was a big hit way back when. And it just felt dated. It felt why not sing? If you're making an updated story of a film from 40 years ago, use a hit from today. Don't use a hit from way back then. But so I thought Beetlejuice was a mess. Okay, so that's one film we talked about last week. The other film we talked about last week is this from Rob Peace. Now, I really want to recommend this. So Rob Peace is a biographical picture. It's based on a true story, and it's about a young man who is basically a genius. He's a scientist. He's studying atoms. He's studying science, and he's a brilliant academic young man. This guy, Rob Peace. However, his father is in jail, and his father is in jail for 2 murders which he did not commit. And in order to get his father a retrial, Rob Peace has to raise a certain amount of money to get a lawyer so that they can have a retrial, so that hopefully his dad can be declared innocent. He struggles to raise the money. And unfortunately, what happens is, and this is a true story, he started to use his brilliant mind to produce, and his knowledge of science, to produce drugs. And he started creating drugs and selling drugs illegally, and ended up facing the wrath of several gangs, because these gangs wanted more and more drugs and he could not supply them quick enough. And the whole story had a tragic ending. It's called Rob Peace, the film after this young man. It really is a sad, tragic, awful story, but it's one that's worth seeing and worth knowing. And I thought the film was captivating. I thought it was suspenseful. I thought it was heart-rendering, because you've got a brilliant young man who could have gone on to become one of the top scientists of his day. This is back in the early 2000s. Could have become one of the top scientists of his day, wasting his life, but he's doing it for a good reason. He wants to get his dad, who's innocent, out of jail. But this is the only way you can think of to raise money. And it's a tragic tale, and it has a tragic ending. Take a box of handkerchiefs with you when you go and see this. But genuinely, it's a really good film. And I thought that the acting was great. Pretty much an unknown cast, no big stars in it. But the film's beautifully produced. The film's beautifully scored. Feels of its time. And I really thought that this was a fascinating film and an amazing story. But I sat there through the end credits, and during the end credits you get pictures of the real people, as you so often do with these biographical films. And I sat there crying, genuinely, because this young man's life ends early in a tragic way. And he just such a brilliant mind, wasted. And you keep thinking there must be some other way he could have got justice for his dad. There must have been some other way he could have used his skills and his academia and his contacts to raise the money that was needed. But he couldn't. So he started selling drugs. And he never became hooked himself on drugs. He never took them himself. But he was making them, manufacturing them illegally, selling them to friends. And I really, you sit there and you think, what a tragic waste of life. Both the fact that his father was innocent in prison, and he's got life sentence. He was eventually released, but only after his son's death. And it is a tragic tale, but it's really worth seeing. So if you're looking, those are two out the cinema. Now there are some new films out at the cinema this weekend. There's a new thriller starring Ian McKellen called The Critic, which I haven't seen yet, so that's out. There's a new horror film out called Speak No Evil. But Beetlejuice is number one. Rob Peace is out, and these two are definitely worth seeing if you fancy a trip to the cinema.
Awesome.
So, let's have some new films at the cinema.
Yes, it does sound very interesting. That based on a true story, Rob Peace.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting when they do that. I have seen a couple of true stories, and oftentimes, like you say, it's not necessarily very nice, because I mean, you see a lot of films, they do present a nice aspect of the characters, but when it comes to a true story, I mean, it's good actually when they don't smudge the facts, when they do actually present it as it happened.
I absolutely agree. This is and this one pulls no punches. You know, it's based on a book that a guy called Jeff Hobbs wrote about this guy called The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. And I think that as you say, you know, when you get a true story and you know it's true. I mean, this guy was at Yale University. He was one of the top students, you know, and yet his life ends tragically. And true stories, you know. I mean, the last time I sat and wept at the cinema, I think I was watching the Amy Winehouse documentary called Amy, and I sat and wept through the end credits of that because a young life wasted, great talent. You know what a voice she had, and there was this documentary that was made, and I just cried through the end credits because, again, she was misused, she was abused, she died young, and you know, cinema can do this. Cinema can move you, and one of the things I love about cinema, and I think I said it in my book, is that you can meet these people. You know, you can meet famous people, you can meet people who have got stories to tell that are actually about what it's like to be human.
Yeah.
And actually, as a Christian, I sat and watched this, and his mother was a God-fearing woman, this young man. And you think, you know, put your trust in God, put your trust in Jesus Christ. Jesus said, I've come to give you life and life in all its fullness. He makes life worth living. Knowing Jesus makes life worth living. But the way some people live out their lives and the tragic endings that they have, and cinema can move you, and that's one of the things I really love about cinema. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Thanks so much, Andy.
It's okay.
And the other thing we're going to look at is the top three at the moment in the box office.
Well, yeah, so I haven't seen number two. So let me just call it up. So number one is Beetlejuice, which we've just been talking about, which is this mess of a film, you know. At number two is a film called The Greatest of All Time, which is now, do you know, which is a documentary. I think it's about Muhammad Ali, but I've not seen it, so I can't comment on it. And number three, still, you remember we talked about this romantic drama with a girl who meets an old flame and her husband beats
Yeah,
her
yeah.
up because that's still hanging on in there at number three, and Deadpool and Wolverine is still hanging on in there at number four. So, but we've got some new films out this weekend, including a new film starring Ian McKellen called The Critic, which is a thriller set in the West End of London in the 1920s in theatre land. We've got a new horror film. So that may change. So by the time we chat this time next week, hopefully there'll be a bit of shifting around in the box office. I mean, one of the Star Wars films is in the top 10 at the moment because,
Really?
as we've said before, they're re-releasing all the Star Wars films, Spider-Man films, Star Wars films, Batman films. They're all coming back out.
Wow.
So Star Wars is there in the top 10. Yeah,
Cool. Well, that's good. Good, great couple of films there. And would
yeah.
you be able to recommend a good couple of films we could watch over the weekend, perhaps?
Yes, so a couple that are new on Netflix. So let's go for Netflix this week. So
Yeah.
first of all, Rebel Ridge, which I watched this afternoon. Uh, this is a film. This is a really good action movie. It's a thriller. It's about a young man who is cycling along, and he's got his headphones on. He's listening to music on his bike, and a police car comes up behind him, and he doesn't realise the policeman is flashing him to stop. Keeps going. So the policeman eventually pulls him over, and what happens is he's got a carrier bag, and in this carrier bag is $30,000 in cash. And he's taking this money to the court, to a courthouse, because it's going to be bail money for his cousin, to get his cousin out of jail. These two policemen rob him of the $30,000, and he spends the rest of the movie trying to get his money back.
Wow.
So these are corrupt cops, and they take the money back to the police station. They share it out amongst themselves. They give some to their captain. The whole police station in this small little town, every copper is totally bent, totally corrupt. And then the young man rounds up some friends, and it ends with a shootout, actually. So it's a bit of a fantastical thriller, but it's really good fun. And I thought it was a good story, and I really enjoyed it. So that's called Rebel Ridge, which is on Netflix. The other new film on Netflix, which is one of the best films of the year so far, is a film called Mother's Instinct. Mother's Instinct. Now, this is a film about a mum whose little boy dies very tragically and sadly, and her neighbour has got a son. The mother whose son has died, she starts to befriend this her neighbour's son, and almost starts to use him as a replacement for her own son, and tries to weed him away from his mother to become her son. So this is a tense psychological drama. Stars Jessica Chastain and Anne Hathaway, who are two great actresses. I mean, they're two of the great actresses of our time. They're both on top of their game in this. And I think that I was riveted by it. In fact, I was so riveted, I've ordered the Blu-ray for my collection, because I thought that the two performances were fantastic. I thought that the story was really, really quite clever. As I say, you got this young boy, and even things like at the funeral of the kid who died, things happen at the funeral. Weird stuff happens at the funeral involving his toys in the coffin, which you need to see. But honestly, it's a really, really good film. I say Jessica Chastain and Anne Hathaway, two great actresses. It's a really intriguing story. Psychological drama. I mean, it's quite hard hitting. It can be quite upsetting, but so well done. I mean, really thrilling, genuinely edge of the seat stuff, as these two women slowly go to war over the child that's still alive, because one is trying to steal him, basically his affections, and replace him for her dead son. So it's called Mother's Instinct. It's on Netflix. Honestly, it's really, really good. I did just want to mention that also available now, widely available. We've been mentioning some children's films. We've had quite heavy films this week. So we've had Rebel Ridge and Beetlejuice and Rob Peace. A film called Migration, which came out earlier this year, is now widely available. This is quite fun. This is about a group of ducks going on holiday and being chased by a chef who wants to cook them. But it's a good kids film. It's called Migration. It's a really good animation, one of the better animations this year, and it's from the people who give us the Minions. So, can't go wrong.
Must be good.
Yeah. So, but on Netflix, certainly Rebel Ridge and Mother's Instinct, I would say, go for it.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Andy. Some great films to
My
watch
pleasure.
there over the weekend. And as you say, still being re-released in cinema. Star Wars movies, Batman movies, and what was the other one?
Spider-Man movies.
Spider-Man movies, yeah.
All still out there, and we're going to keep getting this. Now, I'm not complaining, because I think it's great to go back and see these films on the big screen. And if you miss them on the big screen first time round and you like Spider-Man or Star Wars, I mean, I'm old enough to remember the very first Star Wars film, queuing to see the very first Star Wars film on the day it opened. And I came up disappointed. Loads of people came up praising it, of course. And of course, this week we lost James Earl Jones, who passed away, who's the voice of Darth Vader and was also the voice of Mufasa in The Lion King.
Yeah.
And again, great voice, a remarkable voice that man had. And I just wanted to pay a little tribute to him while I think of it. And also to say, if people want to see James Earl Jones in action, not just the voice, but actually acting, one of my favourite films of all time is a film called Field of Dreams, which starred Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner is a farmer. He hears a voice one day that says, "If you build it, he will come." And it turns into a baseball movie about meeting his dead dad and all the rest of it. James Earl Jones is in that. But James Earl Jones was a great actor. Of course, he did have that amazing voice.
Yeah.
Mufasa, as I say, in both the animated version and the live action version of The Lion King. So he will be but he was 94. So it's not bad.
It's not bad at all. Yeah, that's great.
So
thanks so much, Andy.
My pleasure.
Plenty to watch over the weekend, both in cinema and at home, it would seem.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, then. Well, you take care, and God bless you. And I look forward to speaking to you next week.
Yep. Thanks.
Thanks, Nathan. God bless.